Listening to great content is what it's all about, right? Well, it's also about the great people that make the content, and RealWise TV does this for you. So, how about you going over to YouTube and subscribe to RealWise TV and go ahead and share? What's up, everybody? We're back, and I'm your host, Brandy J, with Voices of. Today, I have with me an awesome guest. He is a author, also has experience as one of the largest maximum security prisons in the state, and his name is RJ Sterling. How you doing there?
Good, Brandy. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right now that you're here. Everything's on the roll.
Yep, all is well. Beautiful day in my neck of the woods.
Yes, yes. Where are you, by the way?
Northeastern part of the country.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Cool, cool. So, well, thank you for joining me here. And you have a very interesting story. But I know that you're an author, but you haven't always been an author, right? So what got you to the point of becoming an author?
Right. So I've been working in one of the largest maximum security prisons in the United States for the last nearly 20 years. I started out as a corrections officer about 19 years ago. And then the last 15 years, I've been a vocational school teacher to the men, incarcerated men. And I've noticed over the years and had the opportunity to see many men change their lives and their minds and their trajectory in the darkest of places. So I got to thinking if if that can be done, because so often we hear about mass incarceration, and the United States Department of Justice tells us that over 10,000 prisoners are released into our neighborhoods every week of the year. And we always hear the negative side of things about how 2/3 of them are going to go back to prison within 3 years. And I got to thinking over time, even if that is true, that statistic, why don't we look at and focus on the 1/3 then who are not going back to prison? So I just have this passion and belief that if we can get these stories of hope and transformation told only by those who have been in prison into the hands and the minds and the hearts of the current prisoners, that they would begin to think like, you know what, I know that guy, or if that guy story, that's like my story. If he can do it, I can do it. I can go out there. And so, of course, the whole goal is to encourage and empower uh, the men to learn to live more productive and honorable lives.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome, because you don't really people expect that to happen, and they say like, you know what I mean, like that, everybody knows that's what's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? But we also know that that's not really on the agenda and doesn't happen a lot. And I think that's really commendable that you really truly care about, what I mean, these men. They're not just like criminals or anything to you, or like another number or inmate. They're human to you.
Exactly, yeah, and that's it's really interesting because I've listened to thousands of hours from hundreds of men over the years, and some of these stories are mind-boggling. And the growing up in cultures that many people just can't understand, and with the mindset of you're not a man until you do life, meaning you're not a man until you kill another man and get a life sentence. And that's actually the mindset of a lot of men that's been raised in certain cultures in our neighborhoods. So what I've done with was is I collect stories as far as publishing of the first book, Get Free and Stay Free, stories of hope, information, and transformation told only by those who have been in prison. I don't actually write the stories out. All I simply do is I collect the stories from these men, and then I put it into a book. And we got one book that we published, and then I'm in partnership with Get Free and Stay Free, is in partnership with Yokefellow Prison Ministry, and they're creating a second book. And then by the end of 2022, we want to get 8 more books on the shelf of all different stories, so that we can download them. Every single story is going to be on the website for free. So anybody can download them, but then for their convenience, they can also purchase one of the books to send in as well. It doesn't matter how the stories get in there, just so they get in there is what my goal is.
Okay. This being a maximum security, this is like this is huge, because these are like considered like the most dangerous, like, inmates to society, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yep. So, when you look at the prison landscape across the country, I guess it starts as little, or not little, but juvenile delinquency centers and rehabilitation centers. Then you can go up to the county jail, and then I guess you got state jail, prison systems and federal prison systems. And then you got everywhere from minimum to medium to maximum security. So correct. I'm in one of the prisons where it's maximum security.
Okay. What's if you don't mind me asking, what's the youngest that you've had?
Yeah, so we get they I'm a vocational school teacher, so I've had only men over 18 years old, but there are men in the system that are 16, young ones, 16, 17 years old. And that question kind of also reminds me of something that you or maybe your listeners might not be aware of, and that is juvenile lifers. The United States Supreme Court, about 5 or 7 years ago, the way time flies, uh, declared that it's unconstitutional to give a person a mandated life sentence where they actually die in the prison system when they committed their crime as a juvenile under the age of 18. And so the juvenile lifers have been being released over the last 2 to 3 years, even though the Supreme Court ruled it 6 years ago. It took a while for the different states to understand and make their way through releasing many of the men. And of course, the goal and the hope is that they go out and they do not recidivate.
Okay. And so that them being youth, at the time, and then coming out obviously older as a man, is it like a lot of them successful, or do they come out with a different mindset since they've been in there like so long, so young?
Right. The encouraging story side of that is that many of them, because they've been in so long, 20, 30, 40 years, that they come out, and the chance of them recidivating and going back to prison are way less than the younger crowd. So in other words, if it's true that up to 2/3 go back to prison, well, when it comes to the juvenile lifer population, it's single digits for sure.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you would say that pretty much you guys keep it pretty productive there.
Yeah, it's what I always encourage the men to do, because the system, unfortunately, a lot of time is not equipped financially and otherwise to offer the rehabilitation that perhaps is due to them. So I often encourage them to try to find it with their fellow prisoners. I mean, if they have an opportunity to take programming and education and get your GED and of course, take advantage of all of that. But if that, uh, but don't depend on that. I know a lot of times the inmate organizations would get so excited when they would invite an outside politician into the prison to highlight or showcase one of their causes. And a lot of times the politicians are just in there for the photo op end of things. And, so I try to encourage them over the years to find what they need for transformation within, and by hanging out with prisoners, their fellow prisoners that are like-minded on a path to success, and to just like any of us would do as kids growing up. Our parents always said, watch what company you keep, so on and so forth. Well, even in the prison system, there's a lot of good to be found if you look good enough.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I would think, okay, so for this to be a maximum security, what's the chances that someone innocent could be there? Because if it's such a high risk, then there has to be like like a reason to put someone that is of that, at that level. So what's the chances that someone that could possibly be innocent be put in a maximum
Yeah,
security?
that's a good question. That I often thought about that and had discussion over the years, and looked into it a little bit. And I don't think the fact that it's maximum security has any bearing on it. If somebody was charged with murder and they never committed the murder, but maybe they had a long rap sheet, and maybe the government the police at the time, um, needed somebody because a high profile case, and then they ended up, so they put it on. Unfortunately, that does happen. What percentage? I don't know. I'm thinking and hoping it's a low percentage, and I'm thinking that it might be around 1 to 3%. And of course, just one person spending 10, 20, 40, 50 years in the prison dying, and they were innocent. That's a whole nother, um, you know, conversation, and a whole nother, sad thing to think about. And I'm glad that there are organizations out there that are advocating for those folks.
Okay. So what would you do? Okay, so what is the most stressful, or like an example of the most stressful experience you've had since you've been in the security of the prisons?
Yeah, I guess when that signal 13, when that officer needs help or a fight breaks out, that's when there's a lot of commotion, a lot of running to the scene to secure the area. And in my officer days, I've been in a handful of physical altercations and struggles, and so it's that end of things that you don't know what you're running into.
Yeah.
And but that's the typical in a big prison like that. I do got to say though, it's not like the TV shows, as far as what you see in the TV shows. Sometimes it is, but they're usually in specialized units where the worst of the worst are. But a lot of times, if you got 3,500 men inmates in a prison, the vast majority of them are general population, and it's like a city. It's like a small town or a city in there, you know, as far as trying to get them to be occupied during the day, whether it's a prison job or go out to the yard for rec, those kind of things. That would be the goal, to try to keep them as busy as possible. But yeah, but no doubt there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on as well.
I can totally imagine. I know a lot of people still tend to think like movies you know, when they think of places, whatever we see like on TV and stuff, and you know, it's most like 9 times out of 10 is never really like that. I don't know if it's like worse or not, but I just know usually it's not like what we see on TV.
You're right. Yeah, yeah, definitely. TV got to make it interesting for them to come back and watch it all the time. So,
Yeah,
it's like I think like some of these policeman TV shows, they shoot more people in 1 or 2 episodes than they'll shoot in their whole entire lives. It's not like you go out and shooting people all the
yeah.
time.
Okay. Well, so with these guys, and then your book and with the book and the public um being able to read it, what is this something from you that you want the people, like the society, to, what would you say to us as far as dealing with, you know, people have a tendency. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to something the other day about, you know, the past, the whole the Floyd, the trial, and
Mm-hmm.
people were making comments, you know, pertaining to some things, but they just kept saying, well, that criminal, well, he, no matter what the situation was, I just kept hearing, well, he was a criminal, so who cares? You know, it's just like, just kept digging, like he shouldn't have been this, and that. He was a drug using criminal, and he did this, and that to his girlfriend, and you know, and I was just like, okay, these things, I don't know, but I still just find it so just disheartening that that's, you know, I mean, what we just hear, that we see it, or we even know it, and then all of a sudden that person becomes lowly to us. Like, what is that something that like criminals or prisoners will always get, and do they deserve it? And what would you say to the people as far as that goes?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you know, I think our problems as a society, um, is rooted. What I try to share with the men is that it's not that complicated when you look at things back in its original time. There's good and there's bad. There's good and there's evil, and you pretty much got to decide what route you're going to go. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, but your decision making process day in and day out is going to be, look, I'm either going to make the right decision or the bad decision. And I think one of the problems that we have uh, as a society is judgmental. We become so judgmental.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
very.
so all white people or all black people or all Christians or all Muslims or all policemen are bad and evil, and it's just so naive to think that that is the case. But
Yeah.
judgmental. We judge people just by the way that they look. If they're pretty, if they're ugly, if they're fat, if they're handsome. And it's just an unfortunate situation. And if they, if society wants to look at, try to make a better place or a better world, I would encourage them to try not to, go down that road of judging. We have a creator, and I think our creator should do the judging, not us. And so, as far as a criminal got somebody with a criminal behavior got murdered or killed or shot to death. He had it coming to him because he had a criminal record anyway, and he's just a troublemaker in the streets, and just that's just a slippery slope that I personally don't want to think that way, or to have my children or grandchildren think that way. And I would just encourage folks to understand that these people in prisons are human beings, like you had
Yeah.
said on the onset, Brandy. And it's amazing, the stories and the emotions that they have are just like anybody else. And you know, and if we can encourage them to think better and do better and make better decisions in the name of public safety, why would we not want that? Why would we
Right.
not? Why would we want? We know that 10,000 prisoners are being released into our neighborhoods across the United States. Wouldn't we want the guy living in the apartment next to us or living in the house next to us, wouldn't we want him to succeed and not go back to prison? So I would encourage everybody to, to think more about these kind of issues that we deal with on a day by day basis.
Yeah, that was very, very powerful what you said, because that is so true. You know, we do want that, we don't want them to go back to, it's just like we're all, no matter what we do or say, we're all in this together. We all take a part. So when we pick each other apart or we are pointing fingers, you know what I mean? It's like we have to take accountability for our part in it. You know what I mean? And if you're tearing people down because of what they've been, then you're actually you're taking part in, you know, trying, not saying if you're pushing them because they make their choices, but you still affects, I mean, we all affect one another no matter what we say or do. We have a lot of separation, but we are all in it together, because if we weren't, we wouldn't be having all this chaos, going on. So it's like we can fix it. We don't realize it. It's us. We keep pointing fingers and saying how everything's messed up, but when the power is completely, truly in our hands. And even the people up high know it. They're just sitting there like, look at them. They just don't, they just don't get it.
Right. So true. There was one ex-offender, they're better known as returning citizens, that said what you were just sharing so eloquently. And his analogy was that you have a ship that's sinking, a boat that's sinking, and you have a couple hundred people on the ship. And at the bottom of the ship, there's a hole. And, it's like, so everybody's in it together. The whole ship's going to go down, or it's not going to go down. And, come together to try to figure out how to keep that ship from sinking. And he explained it so well one time, and it just ties into what you're saying.
Chrissy Richards is back with another season of Cipher of Knowledge every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So are you ready? Because I know I am. Tune in every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Cipher of Knowledge. Your host, the lovely Chrissy Richards. Yeah, for sure. We gotta get it together here. But I like that you're not just there with them. You're like there, like you're actually helping. You know what I mean? That counts, and I'm pretty sure you you helped with the shift of what one could be going through if you weren't there. So I appreciate you for what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. In fact, just yesterday I was talking to one of the guys that I'm training on the forklift for my vocational program, and he said, "I got to tell you, RJ, uh, many guys talk in this prison about you and how honorable you are, and he really sincerely meant it. And this is a guy that's been in jail over 30 years, and he's not a lifer, and he does hope to get out of prison in the next couple of years. And he's just so excited and so thrilled to go up on a forklift and learn how to operate a forklift and get his forklift certification. And it's just so interesting and amazing. I think some of the most relatively obscure talent and people on the planet are inside prisons, but
Yes.
unfortunately, circumstances and fate led them down a different path. But yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah. You were gonna finish. You're gonna say something else?
Yeah, no, I pretty much wrapped it up there as far as
Oh.
just as far as the value of people, and we're not, to judge one person or another, it's just so naive and foolish, for us to do as a society, regardless of who we are.
Yeah, for sure. Because things can happen to us, to our family members, and and then I always tell people, so like, what if it was you? What if your family? Then it's going to be different. you know,
Right.
all of us, anything could change or happen, or you just never know when when God sent an angel, and you're being tested, and I don't know, just the ugliness of people have really been showing themselves this 2021, like real dark. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but uh but I'm like an eternal optimist for the most part. I realize that this life is but a fleeting moment, and anything can happen, like you just mentioned, that you could be here now and gone an hour from now, and or your family member. So, and what we do now, I believe, reverberates, if that's the right word, into eternity. So it's not like, if you're going to do things that are not right and just, then that's, decays like rust. But if you do things where you build relationships with strangers or the criminals past and those kind of things, they go into eternity with you.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to piggyback quick off of when you said like some of the most talented and intelligent
Hmm.
people you'll find right in prison, and that I actually believe that too. I know that I teach. Well, I'm not teaching right now due to COVID, but
Hmm.
a teacher working in the school system, and I'm an advocate for bullying, and I'm working on a project right now, bullies and bullied no more, for the bullies and the bullied. Not I usually just have something where to help people being bullied, or just to it's really centered around the ones being bullied. No one
Hmm.
really horns in and wants to develop anything for the one that's doing the bullying. What I mean? I'm
Right.
like, gotta fix it. That one, especially when they're youth. I mean? It's important. That we help build that to a relationship or growth or whatever we can. But so I noticed that in the schools, and this is like all over. The country, that people are having these issues with bullying and in the schools, and like administrative staff, and people are just not caring, or actually seeing it, being there, not reporting, just no care. I mean, I've experienced where I worked at. My son went to school with me where I worked at, and then his next school. And I've always, said, I was like, you could teach these kids all day long, because it's all about keeping them in the seat so you can get that money. But I mean, what good is it, what I mean, if you're not teaching them people skills, adversity, how to treat one another? I mean, they're in here acting, what I mean, like just disrespecting one another, putting hands on each other. But
Hmm.
that's very smart, they're learning. But there's very intelligent people in jails and prisons. I always say, I was like, there's more to this than just teaching them, educating them. You have to teach them how to socialize and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm really big on that, you know.
Right. Yeah. It kind of reminds me. I had a discussion with somebody else the other day, not so much on the criminal side of the house, but so many young folks have this ADD and these other attention deficit uh, disorders. So they claim, a doctor will diagnose them, and the kid just can't really learn the traditional way of learning. And um, if you were to look at a lot of successful people in our country right now, they were uh, diagnosed and treated with ADD and given all this medication. But there's a lot of people in the industry, in the education industry, that are learning. Look, there's a lot of gifts and talent within that human being that doesn't know how to take tests the way that other people might take tests, so on and so forth. And once they can tap into that behavior, or tap into that human being, that the potentiality can come out
Yeah.
and then really become a valuable person in society. But unfortunately, they were misdiagnosed, and they didn't have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the patience
Yeah.
to see that precious uh, person and its potential. But you
Yeah.
know, so yeah, it's sad. But the thing is, we got to what I got to do personally for myself to and this is what I share with the men, is that I got to take my neck of the woods, my piece of the puzzle, and do the best that I know how to do, and I don't think about changing the world. I think about just changing one life, and then if I can help one man or woman or somebody change their life, and then maybe if I could do that to 5 or 10 or 20 people, and then they did it to 5 or 10 or 20 people, and then
Yep.
I can leave this earth a little bit of a better place.
Yep. Change it together. Yeah. Most definitely, because you never know those ones that don't nurture, or you said a really big word too. A good one was the patience. You never know who that person, that child, could grow up to be, or to discover or save. You know what I mean? Something that we can't figure out now. Like you just never know, and it takes a lot of patience. And I think patience has been replaced with medication. I find a lot of times that, because you think about it, like way back whenever this ADHD thing, my son was diagnosed with it, became a thing. What were people doing when you know what I mean? I think they just kind of, the pharmaceutical, but we're not gonna get into that.
Right.
You know what I
That's
mean? Kind of
right.
stretch that out a little bit. And I really think there's other ways you can really deal with it, because I took my son off of that mess.
Right.
I didn't want him to be dependent on that, because then when you don't have it, then what?
Right.
If you can't get it, because it costs. So I just didn't want to do that to him, and I wanted him to be able to not use that as an excuse, like, oh, because I have this. You know what I mean? Like, never. But to find natural, like, ways to just, like, because you're not, if you're normal, just like whatever normal is, like everybody else, you just have this right here. You know what I mean? You still do everything else just a little differently. You just, and nobody really explains that to them. And they just shove that medication on them. And then you don't want to deal with them afterward if they don't have, that's how it always was. It was like,
Right.
oh, they don't have their medicine. Tell mom he can't come back till he gets his medicine, or they need to
Right.
get those meds in him. It's like, that's all you're doing. You're not trying to really sit down and talk to him and figure him out. You know what I mean? And how does he tick? What bring out, every child learns differently.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I'm pretty sure that you would agree that, from what you've experienced and you've seen a lot, I think we all probably could, I would say, agree that a lot of stuff, would you say that a lot of men that you've spoken to and spent time with always goes back to childhood or how they were brought up?
Yeah, most definitely. That is where, I that's where we're all formed. The first, I believe they
Mm-hmm.
say the first 5 to 7 years, whatever we experience, that first 5 to 7 years, that's pretty much the trajectory that we're heading. And I think of one heartbreaking story. One guy was telling me one time, said, Mr. Sterling, he goes, man, this is my fourth time that I came back to prison, and I'm 32 now, and I'm really trying not to come back to prison. So I really got my head on straight. I went out on the streets, and then uh, my mom, told me to sell some drugs. And it's like, Mom, I can't. What do you mean? You better go out there and sell drugs. And it was like unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story where the mother, the upbringing, it was just a sad story to hear those kind of stories.
Oh, dear. Yeah. I always
So
tell parents we got to take a look at ourselves, you know what I mean, before we, like, we have to do better. We have no choice, can't.
right, that's exactly right. In other words, but yeah, the parenting is so much to do with it. And the parenting, I have to say my own opinion is that much more of it is in the parenting than it is in the government. You know, we want to blame the government so much for our troubles and society,
Yeah.
but it's right down. It goes right down to the upbringing, and unfortunately, a lot of men and children are raised without, the traditional two family household with a mother and a father, and but that's not an excuse or a reason for someone to use to not do better in their own life, because countless of men and women across the humankind has went against all odds and become very productive and successful and honorable, and despite the past that they have had.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely need to, pay tribute to that. And then you have, the book and everything too, and it gives hope and inspiration, because there's always a brighter side, but it depends on the person, So
Right, exactly. Yep, and a lot of the old heads in the prison system, the terminology that they use is old heads and young bucks. The young bucks come in, and they want to come in and raise Cain, and they want to start trouble. And the old heads, especially the lifers, look at them to the side and say, "Hey, look, young buck, this is where we live. You need to pipe down and calm down." And a lot of times, the wisdom that the older prisoners can impart to the younger generations is that's a big piece of a lot of the transformation stories inside the prison, because the lifers, depending on what state you're from, life means life, and you die in the prison, whereas other states have 20 to 25 years and you can get out on good behavior. So if you go in there when you're 18, 20 years old, do 20, 25 years, you can still get out in your 40s. But it depends on the state when that happens or not. But a lot of these transformation stories come from the older generation of inmates, you know, especially the ones that are going to die in the prison, because that's the only thing they have left, is to maybe help some young guy to think differently and not to go back out on the streets. Because unfortunately, with mass incarceration, kind of backfired, not kind of, but it pretty much really backfired. It was a good way through the 70s, 80s, 90s to get, for the politicians to get reelected on the tough on crime, three strikes, you're out, and all those kind of things. And then once you loaded up the prisons uh, with that kind of strategy, and in addition to closing down the mental health hospitals, places, then the prisons filled up nationally, and it turned out to be a pretty bad situation. And even on both sides of the political aisle now, they got it to the point like, look, we screwed this up. This was a social experiment that went bad. And even if for the ones that are not looking at it on a compassionate level, they're looking at it on a fiscal level. Like, no, wait a minute. You're telling me it costs $8,000 a year to send a kid to the public school system, but you're charging 45,000 a year to incarcerate a man in a prison system. I mean, something's way out of whack here. So a lot of the inmates, have a lot of time in their hands. So other inmates, especially unfortunately the younger generation, a lot of times they're not. They're thinking how they're going to deal with more drugs and how they're going to become a better criminal with all this time on their hands, instead of hanging around with the older guys or the younger ones that have acquired the wisdom to rethink where they are in life, and to not go out and commit new crimes.
yeah. Wow. That's like a whole nother, you know.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. It's like, oh man, to to build acquire your reputation and career off of the backs of, some of human being. I mean, that's the way of the world, but I'm just still like, wow.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I know that we've been here for quite a minute, and I wanted to ask you two more questions right before we get like your social. You tell the listeners
Hmm.
some of your links and more where to find your book. But, I wanted to touch on what was it? Okay, yes, because that's their, there's the ones that transition, and the success stories, and then, the ones that, teetering. But then those are the ones that, like you said, are the lifers that are not getting out, but have changed their ways in their life, but have accepted where they are. How can we? So, what would you tell the people? Like, how can we support them, or just choose to when we have these discussions? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really good question, actually, that I haven't really thought much into, because my focus is trying to get the ones that aren't thinking right and doing right, and to help them transform. But what about these men and women who are doing life? They accepted their fate, and their thinking is straightened out. What can we do to tell them, hey, look, you know, good job. Thank you so much for doing that. And I guess the only thing that I can think of off the top of my mind is, there are prison pen pal platforms and organizations where you can write to prisoners. And I don't have any experience with that, but I mean, I'm thinking that might be one way that folks can connect with that portion of the inmate population that's pretty much in the situation that they are in.
okay. Cool. That's something. I don't think a lot of people think about that. It's not a bad thing. We just kind of, like you said, focusing on those ones that, still have a chance and a shot, but they're still human in there, and that's what we could do to human, as human beings, like humans can like, turn that. Well, you don't have nothing nice to say, just don't say nothing at all. But we have so much power to be able just to be good people.
Right,
you
right.
know.
We sure do. In fact, I was just thinking and talking to somebody about that the other day. Every person on this planet has the power of influence, for good or bad. So, in other words, store, you see somebody behind you, holding the door open for them, and just give them a smile or hello, uh, to complete strangers. And then the flip side of that is, with criminal behavior and or any negative thinking and negative behavior, that is also influential on the negative side of things. And so I try to remind the guys, look, think about that. You can be an influence. Again, it goes back to that simplicity of good and evil.
Yeah.
What are you going to choose? You're going to choose the good side or the bad side. Not that you're going to be perfect. It just doesn't work that way. Not that voices ain't going to get in our head and get us all frustrated and discouraged and angry, and then we'd have our little outburst or our little pity party. But then, after a couple minutes, couple hours, couple days, depending on the severity of whatever upset you, then begin to get back on your choices again. Nope, I'm going to do what's right. And if you truly believe that good will overcome evil at the end of the day, and then it's not that complicated to which way you want to go.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's awesome. Okay, and my last question, that I have had you here for a while, because this is deep. This can go. Maybe I can have you back on another time, and we can go down another, avenue to just help people like what you're doing, but also help the community, the people, be able to support and not be so judgmental, and just try to humanize,
Right.
people more often. So yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
oh, okay, I'll go ahead and ask. Yeah. I was gonna ask. oh darn, it went away. Come back, don't go away. What was it? Oh darn, what was a
as,
good one?
as far as how to reach my platforms and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was gonna be that. Oh yeah, okay, it was gonna be that right after. I was gonna say, what is something that you tell? Because I know there's people like out, like you said, they're all across the world. They're letting people out,
Mm-hmm.
across prisons and stuff. Like, and you said something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it made me think. Like, when they have that time and things are going through their heads and stuff. What is something that prisoner, even on the inside, but definitely when they're coming out, something that they could do to, you know, when they're in that, everybody has a place they go, or in their mind or wherever, when they're in that place where they feel, that voice coming, or they're in that bad place. What is something you would tell, or you could tell them that they could possibly do to help with those thoughts, you know,
Oh, right.
or like a
Yeah.
hobby, or just like something they could get into to help them. Some people work out, play sports, like what
Correct.
do they do?
Right. So in other words, I would uh I would suggest that they learn how to um, learn different coping mechanisms and strategies. I guess we all have triggers, and certain things will trigger us one way or the other. And over time, and I guess as we mature, I know in my situation, as I get older, I'm finding more in the maturity level of how to just change that thought. I heard a story the other day where this lady was explaining that these two other ladies got into this very heated uh, argument, and it was getting really close that these two ladies were going to really have fisticuffs, and they were going to hit each other. And then this lady, out of panic or not knowing what to do, she just went over and she did something, and she changed the whole dynamic, and she did something that was real funny. And
Hmm.
and I remember in my earlier years with my marriage counseling with my wife, I remember the counselor saying or suggesting, look, when you're both in the heat of it and you're both screaming at each other, why don't one of you try to think of just changing the record and the rut in that record by just doing something funny. I mean, I don't, there's different things. Breathing, I think there's some value and benefits in breathing. I know even nowadays when I get anxieties, I just learned how to breathe a little bit differently. Um, and I think the biggest thing is the concept of computers, garbage in, garbage out. That's the same thing with our minds, garbage in, garbage out. So if we're constantly taking in the social media and the news and the hatefulness and the divisiveness of life, and you drip, 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 drip constantly, it's like making deposits into a bank account. Uh, but not making deposits, you're making withdrawals. And I would just encourage people to just fill their minds and their hearts and their minds and their spirits with the positive things in life. And then, because there's plenty of enough negativity and diversity and hatefulness that'll creep its way in. But if you're saturated and sound with love and purpose, and then those fiery darts that come at you, those thoughts, or those, they don't grab a hold of you, they don't stick and take a hold of you. They extinguish before they even make it to you. Or if they make it to you, you just shrug them off.
Yeah, for sure. That's good stuff right there. Good stuff and important. Okay. Well, you are pretty awesome, and there needs to be way more like you.
Well, I got to tell you, Brandy, I appreciate you, and I'm grateful to you for allowing me to come on to your podcast. And I'm going to tell you that you're going to hold a special spot in my mind and heart moving forward, because you're the very first person that I have been a guest on your show, and I thank you for reaching out to me. And I believe this passion that I have as I go on more shows and more uh, places, it's going to take a hold, and I'm always going to look back to this to this first podcast. So I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. That's like one of the nicest things I've heard in my whole 2 years.
Great. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. It's heartfelt, and it's very true.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And Nadia, could you do us a favor and once again tell it the name of your great book, Get Free, Stay Free. And I just purchased 2 right now, one for me, and maybe I can gift the other one as a prize or something, but it'll be gifted.
Oh, wow. Yep. Bless your heart. Yeah. So basically, the one even though I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, I have somebody trying to help me figure out how to work those platforms. But the best way to get the go would be simply www.getfreeandstayfree.com. So that word "and" would also go there in the middle. So it would be www.getfreeandstayfree.com, and there explains a little bit more about what I'm trying to do. Not only for the book, the book is just secondary. What I'm would like folks to do is to share their stories with us, so we can get more stories out there. And up on the top of the website, there's an opportunity to share your story. I'm too going to be starting a podcast in a few weeks, and
Awesome.
yep, and it'll be interviewing men and women who have been in prison, who can share their story of hope, information, and transformation. Then we'll take the transcripts from those stories and we'll post them on the website, and then anybody can download every single story by printing it out, or like I said, if it's more convenient for them, just to purchase the book and send it into somebody in prison, and we can help change lives, one life at a time.
Yes, amen to that. I love it.
Yep.
It. Awesome. Well, you have really gave me some ideas and some things to also think about. And so I appreciate that, because like you said, it starts in the home, starts as a youth, and that's something that comes along with what I do, and I just want to make sure that I am doing my best to help.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we can have you on for another time. I'm pretty sure I will, because I know there's so many things that
Yeah.
that I just want to be able to get out there and to share, for the prisoners, the inmates, and for the people too, so we can start to understand better and start helping to better our communities.
Right. And another idea along that same lines would be, maybe if a podcast can be done with 3 voices at the same time, we can plug in one of the men who were in prison and who's out there in the streets, and let him share his story firsthand.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have we can use this one. This one you can have a few. There's the video. We could do video. There's the video one that I had, but I couldn't do it because of the mowing and stuff. But yeah, there's plenty of platforms and stuff too. So yeah, for sure, that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome.
All
Well,
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandy. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I wish you the best, and you take care, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Everybody says RJ Sterling, and Voices of Courage, walk the talk. Peace.
There you go. Thank you.